Molly Beck, reach out. The simple strategy you need to expand your network and increase your influence. Competing for jobs and opportunities can be overwhelming. For many, it requires such stressful juggling acts as working overtime at your current job in the hopes of being promoted, finding ways to best frame the 4-week internship you did when you were 17 on your CV, and drafting countless cover letters. You think you've done all the right things to land that job or promotion until you find out that an old friend of the hiring manager got the gig. So you try again, only to find that that pit of old friends is bottomless. Conclusion: to get ahead, you need to expand the network of people you know. It's as simple as that. If you can't beat them, join them. You too can be an old friend of an old friend. So don't despair and use the next few blinks to guide you instead. Prepare yourself for finding out a few things about a simple strategy called reaching out. Blink number 1. With the right attitude, reaching out can be a life-changing process that will help strengthen your network. Starting a career isn't an easy thing to do. For the author, things didn't really kick off until she started to reach out, actively cultivating the network of people she knew using emails and social media. As a result of reaching out, she was hired by the media giant Hearst, the first breakthrough of her career. So, how exactly do you reach out? Before we move on to specifics, there's a bit of preparation for you to do. First, think of everyone you know. These people constitute your network. Naturally, within this crowd of people, there are those closer to you, such as friends and family, and those less close, like former coworkers or a university professor. You can think of the former kind as your strong ties and the latter as weak ties. Contrary to what you might think, it's your weak ties that can have the most transformative effect on your career. This is because your strong ties usually move in the same circles, while people you only have a weak connection with tend to know information that you don't. Through reaching out, you'll aim to get in touch with these people and increase your number of weak ties. Put simply, the goal is to expand your network of people who can let you know about an opportunity, such as a job or interesting project. The more people you know, the more likely you are to know someone who can recommend you as a contractor or employee. And that's something you definitely want. As many as 2/3 of people recommended by a company's employee get the job. That sounds exciting, but what if you're nervous about putting yourself out there? All the more reason to do it, and do it regularly. Megan Bruno, a Vancouver-based psychotherapist, says that the best way to fight anxiety is to face it over and over again to get used to the discomfort. Sticking to this strategy when reaching out helped her not to dwell on the non-responses as she simply had no time to. Like the author, she reaches out to a new person once a day, every day, and so should you. Now, let's see what reaching out involves in more detail. Blink number 2. The gift and the favor are 2 key elements of any reach out. Imagine that one day a friend surprises you with a gift for seemingly no reason. Experience tells us what your most likely response will be. You'll want to reciprocate the gift in some way. This is exactly the same reaction you should try to elicit in your reach out or RO. The rule is that any good RO, whether it's an email, tweet, or a comment on someone's blog, should include at least 2 gifts. The gifts don't have to be particularly elaborate. Simply paying a compliment or recommending a book is enough. If applicable, share some information that the target of your RO might be interested in but doesn't have access to. If the audience of your blog is the same your target is trying to reach, for instance, you can offer to give your target exposure to that audience. If you need inspiration, take the example of Trista Harris, co-author of How to Become a Nonprofit Rock Star. One day, she discovered that Sir Richard Branson was speaking at a conference she was due to attend, so she drafted an email to the conference organizers with an offer to interview him. The offer included her credentials and the media outlets the conference could get exposure to, which convinced the organizers to let her interview Sir Richard. Another part of the RO is a favor or request from the target. However, unlike the gift, the favor doesn't always have to be included in the RO. When it comes to favors, you need to find the right balance. On one hand, anything that's vague or impersonal is a waste of everyone's time. If Uncle Google can help you with it, then why bother your target? On the other hand, you don't want to overburden the target by asking for information they would normally charge for. The best thing to do is ask specific questions that can be answered in a relatively quick fashion over email. For instance, you can ask about books or articles the target recommends, events they think are worth attending, or trends in their field that you should pay attention to. So, gifts and a favor are the basics of any RO. The other ingredients are contingent on who you're targeting. Blink number 3. Your reach-out strategy should depend on who you're reaching out to. You wouldn't address a longtime friend the same way you would talk to a stranger or your boss. When reaching out, different rules apply depending on who your target is, too. To simplify things, you should distinguish between 4 different kinds of RO in order of how close your connection is to the target: re-RO, the follow-up RO, the borrowed connection, and the cool RO. The first kind of RO is a re-RO. You send this to someone you know already, although probably not very well. Remember, reaching out is about getting in touch with your weak ties to strengthen and expand your network, not chatting with your best friends. The follow-up RO is reserved for reaching out to someone you've met once or twice, whether at a party, conference, or work event. The next type of RO is the borrowed connection. This is where you're addressing someone you've never met but share a mutual contact with. Before doing this, ask your mutual contact whether the target would appreciate an email from you. Finally, the cool RO is for targets you have no connection with. This might, for instance, be someone in your field that you admire. With regards to strategy, it's always a good idea to pay the target a compliment, regardless of the RO type. When addressing someone you have a connection with, it could help to refer to that connection you have in common. The closer we get to the cool RO, the less personal your ROs will get. But still try to make cool ROs personal. You could compliment an article your target authored and refer to specific arguments in it. Lastly, you should mix things up. Different types of ROs provide different opportunities, so finding a balance is key to a successful reach-out strategy. However, keep in mind that response rates vary according to the type of RO you send. For instance, the less daunting re-RO and the follow-up RO yield a 60 to 80% response rate. By comparison, cool ROs lead to a response only a quarter of the time on average, so you'll probably want to focus a bit less on these.